inset boards. It's been 3 months since we made our first inset board, and we've been through 3 more iterations since then. So I thought it prudent for those of you who have interest to check in and show you where we've gone. Now there's been quite a bit of change since version 1 though. That board is still happily skipping around. I was with its new owner last Friday. But where we are today, it kind of looks very different to where we were. So much so these new boards are much thinner. 2 of them here next to me now. Now they've got comparatively raised rails compared to the Gen 1 boards, and a new rocker line as well. The outline's been sort of fattened out around the tail, and the inset point has been moved as well. Now we've also found the upper and lower limits of board sizing now, which is super important in a discipline like this. 2 examples of the most recent boards here. This one is 5'2" by 19 by 1.75. This one's 4'8" by 18 by 1.75, so they're pretty small. And these are a fair representation of a medium-sized board to large, and probably as small as you can go. Now this larger one here has variable inserts, so spans 150 to 170 by 90 bolt patterns in both M6 and M8, but the compromise is that you have a 10mm thickness between the deck and the insert of the drive there. Now you may not think that's a lot, but I will come back to the reason why it is more of an issue in a minute. The other board here has new inserts which cut the board thickness from the inset to the deck to just 4mm. And this, for me personally, is a key point, but it's restrictive on bolt patterns as these inserts are actually bonded into the structure of the deck of the board. Now the whole point of this project for me is that I'm trying to get 2 things optimized. Firstly, maximize the usable space of the mast, i.e. the bit between the motor and the glider section. Now that's the bit of the mast that you live with in free flight. And we all catch the motor and it's annoying. Now I want the motor to be as close to the deck of the board as possible, and these new boards allow this more, as the surface strikes you get are less intrusive, so you can suffer the motor closer than ever. Secondly, and this is the biggest gain for me, to get the glider section as close to my foot as possible while still retaining the maximum amount of usable mast length. Reducing this distance aids massively in control and feel. Reducing this distance stops the motor strikes. Now, these are the 2 major gains. Streamlining of the drive pod is what everybody thinks is a major gain, but in truth, it's just a fortuitous byproduct in my mind anyway. And it's why I don't sweat that the drive unit on these isn't completely hidden. There's a secondary reason for that, and that's because I want to raise the rail so I can get the motor closer. So what I'm saying is, every centimetre from here, the top of the masthead, to here, the bottom of my foot, is, from my playbook of handling gains anyway, a handicap. Now it's commonly accepted that thinner boards ride better, and that's why pump boards are wafer thin. They just don't need volume, and neither do Foildrive boards. If I could, I'd make the Foildrive box as thin as possible, but I can't. So the best I can do is reduce the thickness of the board on top. So we've now got the board down to 4mm. As a side effect, this also massively helps reduce the front foot pressure. And I've talked about this before. Take for example this 20 centimeter motor. Now if I bolt that to a normal board, say 4 inches thick, that would be around 10 centimeters for the board plus 5 centimeters for the Foildrive unit. So you're talking about the motor on a normal setup being 35 centimeters off the deck line. In comparison, this board here is 20 centimeters of motor height plus 5 for the Foildrive unit plus 4 for the board. So that's only 25.4 off the deck line. Now closing this distance reduces the drive unit's torque on the pitch when under power. With it being so much closer to the deck line, the power is diverted more into the direction of travel and less into trying to lift the nose from down beneath and kick you off the back. So the stance I use for power and the stance I use for free flight is essentially the same. Volume. Now this board has virtually none and it's not got a lot of surface area either. Being the smallest board I've ever made, I had worries that my smallest foil, this one here, Plasma 880, it wouldn't work, but I was proven wrong. It's now all I use. Now its ability to pop is the result of the outline, the rocker and the position of the drive in that outline, not the volume at all. For me personally, the volume debate on Foildrive boards is now 100% settled. It's a non-subject, and the strapline is volume means nothing. It aids in the stiffness of the board, but in getting going, it has no effect. It does stop the foil and the drive unit from sinking, but nothing more. Now granted, if you had to paddle home, I'd rather paddle home on that than I would on that, but I would rather optimize for riding, not for disasters. Also, humorously, low volume is ideal for duck diving, and I've had the odd surfer watch me get pinned on the wrong side of a big set, just waiting and praying for Darwin to finish me off. But like an electric cockroach, out I pop, sort of 5 meters further out to sea, a respectable lick and just disappear again. I mean, these things now have full reception underwater. There is a pop threshold on flat water, the speed of which has to be crossed whilst in the prone position. But once you cross that threshold and the speed is there, no matter how you pop, you're gone. And volume does not help you pass that threshold. Lack of volume in this particular board did throw up some structural issues though, which I kind of knew it would, because thinner boards flex more. Now that's made us up the construction, and it's really important to keep these things crazy stiff. You'd be amazed how less controllable some of the more flexible variants have been. Now this particular one is an EPS full PVC sandwich with carbon on both sides of the PVC wrap and a spread toe overcoat to finish the whole thing off. And yes, it's lighter, this one is 2.7 kilo and undoubtedly it's stiffer. But ultimately, sadly, it's uneconomic in construction time. This one's been in the vacuum bag like 5 times. Realistically, we have got to dial this back and make it thicker again. That said, I don't really want to add weight and volume. It's very good when carving to have this thinner size, this thinner structure, and definitely less intrusive when motoring. Reception-wise, we kept the same deck window in the deck of the board and a rail patch on the side. And that lets you activate the drive when you're actually under the water, holding it against the rail. Now, some of these guys are having competitions to see how deep they can go, which is probably not a good idea, but there you go. So there we are. I'm going to make a few more of these before the end of the year, and maybe next year we'll have some production series boards. But I'm pretty sure that in 2 years' time, variations of this will be the standard. And I hoped this has sparked some ideas and perhaps given you a glimpse of where some of us are going with all of this. It's for sure a new avenue for many of us, this foil assist lark, and love it or hate it, you can't argue that it's getting really popular, rightly so, and that it's a very productive use of your time in the brine.